And so this group of people is actually a committee, a subcommittee of the SMDM Open Source Modeling Special Interest Group. And we've been interested in developing a checklist to actually bring some order in the chaos that can occur when you actually develop a model in R or another software, script-based software. A bit of the background. So transparency is a cornerstone of scientific integrity and a key element to bring trust in the findings of scientific research, but also transparency of health economic model is crucial to ensure these models are credible. And one way to operationalize this transparency is to develop open source models. There are other ways to provide and make transparent research, transparent modeling, but in this talk, I'll just focus on open source modeling that we operationalize as a model for which you can have access to the code, so the source code, the data, and the documentation. And this checklist really focuses on that last one. Because as you may know, a model can be open source, but it doesn't always mean that it is really transparent. So the aim that we had with CHAOS, so the checklist for assessing open source health economic model, is to support health economic developers in making their model more transparent. And we focus actually on the documentation, so the transparency of the documentation of these open source health economic models. Why do we think that is needed? Well, we see that the uptake of open source practices or good open source practices in health economic and outcome research is quite low. And we've seen that through a previous systematic database review we did with Raymond Henderson, where we identified 154 open source models. And by looking really quickly through some of them, we could really see that the quality of the documentation of these models we found was quite heterogeneous. So some models, for instance, didn't have a license or a correct README file, a complete README file, etc., while others had really nice interactive documentation online, etc. So there was quite a wide range of the quality of the documentation that was available concerning these open source models. And actually developing a high quality open source models requires some basic or advanced, depends where you are on the spectrum, software engineering skills. And these are not included in standard health economic programs. At least in the Netherlands, I was happy that R is being picked up in some part of the UK. So that's really nice to hear. But here in the Netherlands, we're not there yet. So how did we develop this checklist? We've been, to be completely honest, quite pragmatic. So we made a call for people who were interested in participating in the development. We ended up with 9 people with a background in health economic evaluations from different parts of the field. So people from consultancy, industry, and academia. And we also have one software engineer which develops health economic models, which is also participating. So that brings really another perspective on how to approach this. We meet approximately once monthly. So this is still ongoing. We asked for public feedback in March, April 2026, and we applied the checklist to check the feasibility, its completeness, and whether if different users use this checklist, do they get the same results or do they assess the model in the same way? So this is a timeline. We started in 2025 in November, where we defined the aim of the work we wanted to do, of the checklist. We drafted the checklist based on our own experience. We applied it between December and March. And based on these applications, we refined the aspects that we included in the checklist, and we changed the format from a checklist to a rubric. So yes, we're cheating with the name, but I think it has also some advantages to present it as a rubric. March, April, we opened it for comments and we got 16 responses. And in April, July, so now we reviewed these comments, implemented some of them, had to discard some of the comments, unfortunately. And we are currently in the process of validating and feasibility assessment of the checklist. So what we started with is a bunch of items ranging from having a README file until having a unit test to test the model, etc. And that was quite broad. And we actually wanted a bit to be more focused and focused on some issues, but actually not going down the road of validation and verification of health economic models, because there are already tools to actually help you out with these endeavors. So in the meantime, we actually discarded the format of having items that we could rate as yes, no, because we think there is a gradient in how you can implement certain things when developing an open source models. I want to thank also people for the feedback, if there are people in the audience who provided feedback. And some example of the feedback, unfortunately, that we had to discard or were not able to implement within the scope of this work was the inclusion of the validity aspects, so unit testing, code verification, how to increase the accessibility of the model to users. So, for instance, by using interactive interface. And one comment that was really extensive and also really nice was suggesting to have 4 types of documentation for different users, reviewers, developers of the models. We wanted to make things less complicated, so we thought, let's not start having different types of documentation for different users. So that's maybe the way forward. But I think the complexity of most model development do not require this type of documentation. And we first have to start somewhere, and then we can go deeper into this kind of documentation, etc. So now, how does chaos looks like now? We have made, based on the different endeavor testing the checklist and the feedback, we have selected 10 items at the end of the day that we separated in 3 categories. So there is the metadata, the coding quality, and the reproducibility. Why is that last one in the checklist? That is because we think that by having a nice documentation of your model, you actually can help people to actually reproduce and reuse the model that you have developed. And now back to the different categories. So in the metadata, we focus on the aspects of having a README file, run guidance, license, a documentation of the package and dependencies, and documentation of model version and the history of the model. So do you use releases, etc. Coding quality focuses on having a folder structure that is clear, a consistent coding style, coding documentation, and functions, the use of functions and modules. And reproducibility is actually, well, are you able to reproduce the model given the information that is provided? And I just mentioned before that we structured the checklist as a rubric, and this is actually how it looks like. So I'm not going to go through all these items, but for each of these items, you can rate it as being absent, going to basics, adequate, and advanced. So if we take the example of having a README file or a clear starting point of your model, well, it cannot be there for some model when it's absent. And if it's advanced, well, it entails that it's clear what the goal and the purposes of the model, contact details of the developers, link to publication, DOI, installation guidance, etc. And basics and adequate, well, are in the middle of there, so you comply to some of these aspects. And for each level, you can then say, well, it's absent, basic, adequate, or advanced, and you can clarify why you rate it as such. So this is the rubric metadata, and this is the rubric coding quality and reproducibility. For the sake of time, I'm moving on. These are preliminary results of the validation and feasibility assessment that we are still currently executing. So the aim is to apply chaos to the 10 most recent entries of the review of Raymond. And as you can see, if you look at the reproducibility column, we are now at 7. And each model that we assess is assessed by 2 reviewers independently. And what you see in the table there is what is the deviation in assessment, so in levels, for each of the item of the checklist. So for the metadata, you can see that out of all the ratings, 27 are actually identical between the 2 reviewers, 9 deviate by 1 level, 3 by 2 level, and 1 by 3 levels. And what we take out of this, actually the reproducibility seems, based on this quick look, that it's quite, the reproducibility is rated quite differently by the different assessors. And this may have different reasons. So here you can see the summary scores per item for all the 7 models that we assessed. So the red color is absent and the green is advanced. And what comes out here, what you can see is that the documentation of the run guidance and of the package and dependencies. So think about which package have you used in your model and which version. That is often absent. So there is no place where that is nicely documented in these models, which can lead to this really red bar in the reproducibility, where meaning reproducibility of most of these models remains challenging. And probably because it's not clear how to install the model or how to run it, or a combination of both. So for now, based on our experience and the process we have used to develop this checklist, the main limitation, of course, is the academic rigor. We could have been more rigorous, but we actually do not have the time and resource to do so at the moment. So pragmatism has been our way to go at the moment. And some gradings may be susceptible to subjectivity. So we use terms in the description of the levels like human readable, sufficient details, or commonly used. And something that is described in sufficient detail or that is commonly used, well, can be dependent on your seniority level or software development experience. So these experience that you have may influence what you think is sufficient or commonly used. So that may be something we have to work on. One solution could be to have a glossary of our definitions of these terms to ensure that users of the checklist use our definition and use the checklist as we intend. So we chose the rubric format to also encourage people to improve their open source practices. So if they see that when developing their model, they are at basic level, they always have an idea of, oh, but I can improve in this way. But it has the drawback that some of the elements that we used are not black and white, so the levels may overlap a bit, leading to the discrepancies in ratings that I've shown earlier. This work actually requires updates, so we aim to version it on GitHub if possible. Some of these aspects, if not all, can also be applied to models developed in proprietary software. So that's also another use of this checklist. And what we are going to do in a couple of next weeks is to discuss and investigate why assessors deviate from each other. And further research we have into mind is maybe use a structured approach to refine chaos, involve stakeholders to assess the usability, understand the barriers of getting to that adequate or even advanced level of chaos, and assess whether chaos is really encouraging people in improving their practice. And we aim, if we also have time, to use GenAI to assess the quality of the documentation of available models using chaos, but through GenAI. Check whether with GenAI we can actually adapt existing model to meet these higher standard of chaos and incorporate chaos in actually de novo model development, which would be quite efficient actually. So take home message, we need as a group to step up our game concerning open source practices, and chaos is there to help us out. So any feedback is still welcome. If you want to be involved, email me, and thank you for the opportunity to be here. And sorry for the time I took.
No worries. Thank you so much, Xavier. We have a question in the chat from Janine. I wonder whether generative AI has a role to play in assessing the extent to which published models conform with chaos. And Janine mentions that repeatedly she recently attended a presentation by a colleague who was using LLMs to code qualitative data according to a rubric. Any thoughts on that?
Well, I think we want to investigate that as well. So that's nice that you came to that thought as well. So this is something in the pipeline. We just need to find the time and resource for it. So if you have a nice master student who could do that, that would also be great. We could have a look at how to do this.
Excellent. Thank you, Xavier.
Yeah.
Just a comment from me, because of course the discrepancy that you have found is quite large, and you are thinking already on developing that sort of Delphi panel that can help you bring that to a less divergent answers. I think this will require quite a lot of explanations once you can work a little bit more on that, providing details, providing explanations, because at the end of the day, even with simpler checklists, a lot of times there's a little bit of variability from reviewer to reviewer. This is much more complex. So the closer you can get those answers, and the more examples maybe you are able to provide whenever you are publishing this checklist or rubric with many details in terms of how to best assess, the better, so that we can prevent that variability in the future. Any additional question? I can see Ben, your hand up. Please go ahead.
Thank you for presenting this here, Xavier. My question is about the scope of the checklist. It's a little bit between a checklist like Cheers that focuses on publications, just to name that everything is in the manuscript, and maybe a checklist like TakeVar that focuses a little bit more on the model. It's somewhere in the middle, isn't it? It's about the documentation of the model, but not necessarily if the model is valid itself. Have you decided whether you're going to go in either direction in future iterations, or if you're going to stay in the middle? Thank you.
Yeah, I'm not going to speak for everybody there, but I think we will stay in the middle because, as you mentioned, there are tools to guide validation efforts. Whether they would need update because GenAI is there and can help out with that, that's another debate, I think, and something that should be investigated. But I would, for now, stay away from that because our goal is then less clear to the outside world, I think. But yeah, I'm also a huge fan of validation efforts, so that's something that requires still some work, but not with this one. Yeah. Does that answer your question, Ben?
It does. Thank you.
Okay, great.
Great. Thank you so much again, Xavier. Really good presentation, very interesting work and helpful tool. Looking forward to seeing how that develops in the near future. And thank you also to all our speakers. We are on time for the break. I just wanted to mention a couple of things. So it's been excellent presentations. Another session, again, what stood out across this session is that R is supporting HTA and even healthcare services, or can support in increasing diverse ways, from complex simulations to expert elicitation to dealing with resource constraints. And this checklist rubric on chaos is another very important aspect that we can consider in the future. A common theme has been that innovation alone is not enough. These tools need to be usable, validated, transparent, and ultimately relevant to decision making. And today's presentations have shown both how far the field has come and also how much opportunity we still have ahead. So thank you all.